Thanks, Aid, for the introduction. Thanks to all of you who chose to spend your morning, noon, evening, maybe even night along with us. We really appreciate it. First, I have to ask you, what did you really think about our little teaser movie? Personally, I think it's engaging every time. I almost pinch a little tear. It's an emotional big thing, and I was hoping that it would trigger two fundamental questions with you. First, you would think, how do these guys really control that product portfolio that expands so broadly in such a relatively short time? And secondly, how is this related to configuration lifecycle management? Well, thank you for raising exactly those questions, because that's what I aim at addressing in the next couple of slides for you and with an explanation for me. Disclaimer, it will be slightly nerdy, and I will probably be speaking too fast and you will probably miss some details. Try to raise some questions and we can elaborate, and I'm always willing to follow up on anything. I will try to dig down a little bit more practically, is focusing on product architecture and the data around it, and how does that impact the different stages and solutions that we're talking about today. So first, a little bit about the company and the motto we are following, the moving big things to zero. As you see from the list here, first of all, we address major industrial complexes from shipping to cement to chemical area and so on. Big monsters. How do we do that? We do that because we have hundreds of years of experience, not being decarbonization champions. No, we were carbonization champions. We addressed oil and gas. We ran heavy fuel engines for the big ships and so on. We got the whole apparatus going. What we have needed and what we have been successful in during the last 10, 15 years is to turn the ship literally 180 degrees around to pursue what the market really requests, a sustainable and environmentally reasonable product range that really matters in this aspect. Energy Solution is a mid-range company. We are part of the Volkswagen group as such, and we can be considered small. We have 15,000 employees. We have a 4 billion revenue pattern, growing extensively, and we have a worldwide footprint. That's all I'm going to say about the company as such. Let's rather zoom into the product and consider how do they really play in when we talk about configuration management. First of all, we tailor-made our solutions. That means we are talking about big scale industrial equipment that cannot be delivered off the shelf, that definitely have to adapt to whatever customer scenarios out there, regulatory requirements and technical application in multitude of different options. We cannot rely on being standard. We cannot say we delivered 2 identical plants. No, we never did. 2 areas of interest in our industries section. Heat pumps, not the one in your summer house, but the one for big scale industrial heating or cooling, or for heating in major civil districts like 35,000 households in one plant and so on. Carbon capture using this the same compressor technology or similar compressor technology to really capture the carbon either from blue air or from exhaust from cement industries or similar, and handle it, utilize it, store it, or whatever we can do it to simply avoid the carbon emission. New kid on the block is in the hydrogen area. Our sub-company H-Tech producing equipment for hydrogen electrolysis, and that's the closest thing we get to a 40-foot container packaging. And then historically from our shipping side, we turned the ship around. As I mentioned, we now address the market for environmentally friendly, either CO2 reduction on methanol or complete avoidance by synthetic fuel like ammonia and so on in the future. For the new engines we supply or for retrofit of the existing fleet, which gives us a tremendous market and a tremendous impact. Keep in mind that the shipping in itself is probably 4% of the global CO2 emissions. So if we having close to between 80 and 95% of the world market can really address this big ship and big engine market, we mean a big difference. So what do these products look like? As you can imagine, they are complex, they are big, they need to be adapted, they need to be customized to fit into the individual application, but also scaling a business like that, and we are talking about scaling like in triple scaling. We need to scale, we need to depend on repeatability, and that's where the configuration comes in. So in short, we need to merge what we did in the past of project sales and customer-specific solutions top to bottom. We need to combine that with plannable and repeatable products and operations to support those products also in an aftermarket situation. I brought two little quotes here, and I'm a little unfair to my colleagues, but anyway, let's share them. They range all the way from we engineer whatever the customer wants. If he wants a two-stroke engine, we feel lucky because we've done it before. That says a lot about how customer adaptable we really are and what the customer can expect of willingness from us to adapt. But we also realize, even from a board level, that with this exploding market, it's definitely a matter of obtaining the scalability and repeatability of the business. We need to introduce standards, Baukasten, as in a German company, that flows through the entire value chain. And I will already now introduce this little figure in yellow and blue that introduces the two terms of sales configuration and product configuration. Often they're combined, and like in a CPQ solution, these two goes very much hand in hand. But in our situation, we already introduced the sales side of it to various degrees in the different business unit. Now we need to get a stronger grip of our core products and how they're really orchestrated. This little sketch is trying to merge the whole value chain, and I take it from a typical PLM perspective in an ETO kind of organization, saying we implemented already a certain level of tools to support the sales and the bidding side of it. We have costing rules that based on a scope of supply given to us by engineering, typically through a manual bid support process. It will generate proposals, all the framework around it, all the costing, all the terms and conditions, even the plan and the order structure will be generated out of these kind of activities, and even some of the aftermarket commercial transaction opportunities that we got to some extent. What we really need to do is filling the lower half, the sort of less visible part of it, to do all these things better. In short, we have three overall objectives. One is to at all maintain those at any time valid standards. You heard Henrik talking about life cycle, not only for the products, but also for the configurations. That's what we're talking about here. It gets complex to do that. B, support fast bidding, because fast bidding is almost one-to-one with the chances of winning a bid. And three, and that's where we really need to get our stuff together and really support the full execution cycle from engineering and the design process to supply chain and how we supply this globally and down to the aftermarket where spare services and digital add-on products really kick in. We need to deliver what is lighted out as dark blue here. And now I want to share with you three significant aspects of what you need to think through, at least my perception of what you need to think through by applying this to an industry like ours. First, very deliberately consider what is the benefit for each step in the value chain. What is the R&D purpose and the product management purpose? Well, that's about the variant and complexity and risk management part, the whole portfolio of products. But also they need to consider there's a substantial effort in defining this as a joint effort. What Jan just mentioned, joint effort between sales, product management, engineering, supply chain, even the aftermarket guys needs to be involved in that. For sales, it's these three aspects. It's the fast and accurate scoping by non-experts. That means fast means chance of winning the bid. Accurate meaning that what we sold is also what we deliver, so that we don't sell cheap but execute expensively. And by non-experts meaning that we can provide guided selling to out there in the remote sales offices and not requiring expertise involvement in every sales situation. That's what the sales guys looks for, and they will be concerned. Will this still fit our customer just as much as our customization did back in the days? Engineering, in case of implementing this kind of logic, will of course be looking for the efficiency. They will look at effort reduction, lead time reduction. They will be feel ensured that what they deliver will be of a high quality. But they also look scarcely at the effort of modularization, so they're carefully selecting where to hit. In a supply chain context, we talked about our ability to really plan ahead in our supply chain. We've just been through the worst supply chain crisis in recent time, so it's essential for supply chain to have better ways of planning and to ensure the quality of the deliverables. But these guys are maybe even more complex situation since they have to supply both in South America and Asia Pacific, in Europe and so on, all over the world, and what is standard here is maybe not standard there. And then lastly, the aftermarket partners will be looking for how can I easily make sure that spares is available globally, that service competences is available, that digital add-on products will fit this particular product, and so on. All down to standards being defined and executed. Their worst nightmare is, of course, that they have not really 100% control of the equipment out there. How has it been modified? Has anybody else been selling parts to it, and so on? Can we rely on it? I tried to depict in this little sketch, if you can follow that, the typical role of the sales configuration and the CPQ side of it. That, of course, focus on the sales side and the umbrella for the execution. What we need to do additionally, at least in MANES, is to support the product definition carefully, all in details, and then make sure that it not only creates but also tracks the way the product is represented in engineering, in supply chain, in the real as built and as maintained structures out there. And as my little color scheme indicates, it gets more and more complicated. It gets less and less low-hanging fruit, but definitely the biggest value will be to take this all the way to supply chain. So that's the value chain support. Now it gets really nerdy, but I hope you will, just like me, see a value in looking more carefully in a complex, adapted, customized product scenario like ours. What does ETO and CTO really mean? It's two very black and white terms for a world that is more 50 shades of gray in these days. We have identified these 6 steps on this path, and there's no real thing, there's no correct result of getting it all to the fixed level, but you need to look down in the structure of your product and sort of identify which elements am I talking about. In order to meet customer requirements, is my end target the CTO, the fixed variant? Is it a scaled item that I can produce custom to each customer, or it's simply a tweaked version of what I did last year for the same customer and working on from that? You might recognize from right to left for once. The chosen category is what we typically announce as CTO. That's where we choose between 3 known elements, and you pick that from the shelf and you execute it. We all know that kind of combination. The interesting from a very adapted product like a product range like ours is probably more in the composed or parametric. Composed means, and I label those both CTOX because they are sort of a standard and then creating unique items. It's where composed is where you create a unique set of deliverables from exclusively known elements like a whole piping system or instrumentation systems and so on that definitely is customer specific, but all built up of predictable components, and therefore also through calculation and through design you're able to predict a cost, a pricing picture, a supply chain model, and even the services that you can apply to it afterwards, even though you don't know the detailed design yet. Similarly, what I call the parametric here is where you can stretch or shrink. You have the need to adapt this particular component specifically to every customer order. That happens in a lot of cases. If you're able to parametrically describe those standards, then we are also able to, first of all, call it a standard, then derive the basic parameters of what drives the cost, what drives the supply chain, what drives the potential stock availability versus the need in different regions. Yes, it is not stockable items, it is not pure out-of-the-box CTO, but don't let that hold you back and say you cannot do standardization, because you can. So then down to the incomplete, which basically means take a pre-existing standard and then allow some tweaks, control tweaks here and there to get the next custom result faster. These variants exist in our current portfolio. The little yellow circles indicates the volume or the distribution between those business model. Yes, we will work from an ETO or CTO plus kind of modus and try to enforce the CTO more, the standards more, but we will definitely not have value out of standardizing our entire business, doing all the pre-design and so on. We will also harvest the benefits of the middle one, where we deliver something completely tailor-made to a customer, and he considered custom fit to his scenario, and we consider it a standard. Just take the example of buying new windows to your house. I tell you, you can order it the width and the height you need, but from the window manufacturer perspective, it will be completely according to standard, and he can give you a price directly on the website. Same for us. Yeah, I told you it's a little nerdy. Let me complete this round with the last important aspect to consider. That's the solution hierarchy itself. Which level are you addressing when you talk about product configuration? If you're configuring a bicycle on the World Wide Web, you can quite easily say what kind of steering handle or wheels you want. It's just a flat list of pre-selected components. But when you talk about anything from a tiny component to the biggest plant possible, you really carefully need to say which level are you primarily addressing, or which levels are you addressing in your standardization effort. Components, easy to describe, but not what the customer asks for. Customer asks for something in the top, and you are eager in standardizing in the bottom. How do you bridge those two? One of the tricks here is, of course, to be specific on your definition of what a product is. How can you define a product in a plant context where products is only part of it? There's also additional supply like piping and control systems and even construction elements and so on. You really need to see what is the attractive element to consider as target for your standardization. Yeah, this is a big topic. I hope I have raised a few thoughts that can be useful for anybody else than us. It's definitely useful for us, but I hope you can take it with you. Let me wrap up in the end by saying that there are four aspects in total. We are considering a little bit how far we are. There's the value chain integration. Are we talking about sales? Are we talking about design? Are we talking about supply? Typically, you start from a sales perspective, a CPQ perspective. That's what we do, and that's the most obvious thing. But we definitely want to take this integration through. There's also the more disciplinary integration. A company like us would start with the mechanical side and then move towards the electronics, the control systems, and so on, down to the software packages. Those life cycles are rarely aligned, so it's difficult, but very valuable to align. We are mechanical guys by nature too. Variance integration, I already told you, ETO to CTO is definitely one aspect. We wish to grow more to the CTO X and the CTO plus side. And lastly, the solution integration. Do we face customers with solution configuration, with product configuration, with module configuration, or with component configuration? We are starting with the modules and the product side because we think it's more feasible and can harvest some relatively low-hanging fruits. Yeah, that was a very fast walkthrough of Man Energy's solutions core approach to this. I hope it was valuable to you. Thank you very much for listening, and now I will give it back to Shahid.